Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav, and we'll be learning today Mirza Hashem Daf Tzadik Gimel Amid Aleph. We are continuing to learn Sukkah, and we pick up today. I have to increase my volume here a little bit. Bear with me for 1 second. Okay, let's try that. I think that'll be a little bit better. So we pick up today. 1 second. I have trouble here. Technical details. Okay, I think that should be distinctly better. Okay, so we pick up today on near the bottom of Tzadik Beis, Amid Beis, in Siman Tuf Reish Lamed with Siv Vav. Now, by way of Hakdama to Siv Vav, let's remember what we learned in Hilchas Shabbos, specifically when we were learning Hilchas Erevin, where we learned the halacha of a tail gavaya asara. If you have a platform that's 10 tvachim high, so imagine if out in Rishus Harabim you have some kind of a platform, you have a mound that's 10 tvachim high, and it's at least daled al daled. The halacha is that the top of that mound, the upper surface of that mound, is considered a Rishus HaYachid. Why is it a Rishus HaYachid? It has no mechitzas. We're not talking about a scenario where there's a fence around the top of the mound. Just by virtue of the fact that the mound is 10 tvachim high and it's daled al daled, the top of that mound becomes a Rishus HaYachid. Why? Because of the halacha of good Assic Mחיצתא. Good Assic Mחיצתא says that when you have a mound, when you have a surface, and that surface is a raised surface that has walls, the walls halachically are seen as being continued going up. So you have 10 tvachim of height over here. These outer walls of the mound are seen by halacha as if they continue straight up. And since they continue straight up, the upper surface of the mound is surrounded on 4 sides by mechitzas. That's the halacha of good Assic Mחיצתא. Now, the question that we have to deal with now is, what do we do with good Assic Mחיצתא in the context of Hilchas Sukkah? So let's take a look here in Siv Vav. Says the Mechaber, Na'atz arba kundasin. Let's say you erected 4 poles. Bein be'emtza hagag, you did this on the roof of a building. Now, whether you did it in the middle of the roof, bein al svas hagag, or you did it on the edge of the roof, v'sikech al gabon, and you put up schach on top of these poles, psula, the sukkah is puzzle. What's at play over here? This is the question of good Assic Mחיצtא. The roof of a building, if the building is at least 10 tvachim high, the roof of the building is always considered to be a Rishus HaYachid, because of the same halacha that I told you about the tail gavaya asara. If you have a building that's at least 10 tvachim tall, the outer walls of the building are seen as extending upward beyond the roof line, and now that roof is a Rishus HaYachid in the context of Hilchas Shabbos. So now you might think like this. Let's say I go up on the roof, and I put up 4 poles, 1 pole on each corner of the roof, and I use it to support schach. So I have schach, and because of good Assic Mחיצtא, I have mechitzas, because the outer walls of the building extend upwards. So l'chayra, I have a kosher sukkah. The Mechaber tells me over here, no. And the Mechaber makes the point that it doesn't matter where you put up the poles. If you put up the poles in the middle of the roof, so if you have a very large roof, and you made this structure in the middle of the roof, and your poles are more, let's say, than daled amas away from the edge of the roof, then you understand that you can't say get a good Assic Mחיצtא to make yourself a sukkah. Because what does it help that the mechitzas go straight up? Your sukkah with your schach is all the way in the center of the roof. It's more than daled amas away from the outer walls of the building, so you can't say doifen akuma. So you have a lot of, even if you have those halachic walls, you have a lot of empty space between those halachic walls and the schach. So that we understand doesn't work. The Mechaber goes out of his way to tell you that this is puzzle bein be'emtza hagag, whether you erected this structure in the center of the roof bein al svas hagag, or even if you erected this structure all the way on the edge of the roof. In that case, your schach goes all the way to the edge of the building, all the way to the roof line. Now you might have thought that you say good asik mechitza, and you have beautiful halachic mechitzas that go up and meet your schach. You might think you have a kosher sukkah. Says the Mechaber, no. So let's read it again inside. Not arbog kandastin, if you erected 4 poles on top of the roof. Bein be'emtza hagag, whether you did this in the center of the roof, removed from the outer walls of the building, bein al svas hagag, or if you did it on the edges of the roof, so that your schach is going to meet the edge of the roof and it's going to be in line with the outer walls of the building. V'sikech al gaban, and you put schach up on top of these poles, psula, the sukkah is puzzle. That's the Dei Rishona. That's the first opinion brought down by the Mechaber here in Sivav. However, the Mechaber says, V'yesh machshirin, there are those who say that this sukkah is kosher, b'noatz al svas hagag, if you do it on the edge of the roof, mishun damrin on good asik mechitza. There are those that say that you can say good asik mechitza, and this could be a kosher sukkah. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah here. On the bottom line of Tzaddik Beis Amud Beis, Ois Katan Chav Tes. Bein al svas hagag psula, and the Mishnah Berurah explains, V'afta legabi Shabbos l'kuli alma amrinan good asik mechitza. Even though in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, everybody agrees that we do say good asik mechitza, and since we say good asik mechitza, the roof is a rishos hayachid, even if it has no fence going around it, because we say good asik mechitza, and the exterior walls of the building are seen as continuing up beyond the roof line. Lagabi Sukkah, in the context of Hilchos Sukkah, Svira lahu deba'inan mechitzais mamish. These Rishonim, the Dei Rishona here brought by the Mechaber, hold that when it comes to Sukkah, you need mechitzais mamish. You need real walls. You can't have just halachic walls. You have to have actual walls. Why is this? There are those that explain the reason is there's a major difference between Hilchos Shabbos and Hilchos Sukkah. When it comes to Hilchos Shabbos, we're dealing with the halachic nature of the domain that you're in. Is it a rishos hayachid? Is it a rishos harabim? You're not allowed to transfer from rishos harabim to rishos hayachid, from rishos hayachid to rishos harabim. Fine. So if the area is halachically a rishos hayachid, if we say good asik mechitza, so those mechitzas make the rooftop a rishos hayachid. But when it comes to Hilchos Sukkah, what do we need? We know that when it comes to Hilchos Sukkah, we need Teshvu Kain Taduru. We need, the Sukkah is supposed to be a dira saroi maybe, but it's supposed to be a dira. We know that the schach has to be put up l'shem tzeil. It has to be put up for shelter purposes. So the mechitzas have to be dira mechitzas, not halachic mechitzas. It's like, let's say somebody is out and he's going camping, and he says, oh, I forgot my tent. So you know what I'll do? I'll make halachic walls. I'll go to the edge of the roof, and now I can say good asik mechitza, and now I feel very secure because I'm walled in. No, you're not. You're in halachic walls, but you're not in physical walls. For a dira, you need physical walls, not halachic walls. And therefore, this Dei Rishona holds you cannot use good asik mechitza to create the defanos of your sukkah. However, as Cotton Lamed, the Mechaber brought down a Dei Shnia, a second opinion, a Yesh Machshirin. He brought this down from, in the Berurah, brings this down from Sharira Goyen. And this, by the way, is based on an Ibaya Dali Ifshita in the Gemara. This is a question brought down in the Gemara. It's an Ibaya Dali Ifshita. The Gemara leaves it in a Teku. So there is a Yesh Machshirin that says that this is kosher because of good asik mechitza. Ais Cotton Lamed, Pirish, what's the explanation of good asik mechitza? Ki'ilu svas kais alabayis mala es mechitza lamaila. The way we look at good asik mechitza says you have a building, and the building has a roof, and it has exterior walls. The edge of the exterior wall is seen as halachically continuing upwards and forming your mechitzas, and therefore v'hareyesh l'sukkah mechitzas, and therefore this sukkah does have walls and has halachic walls. But the Mishnah Berurah says v'dafka kishahagag einoi boilet min abayis ulachutz. However, even these opinions that say that you can use good asik, that's only if the outer wall terminates at the roof line. if the roof extends over the wall, then we cannot say good asik mechitza, even according to these opinions, because the roof breaks the wall. So we don't say good asik mechitza to say that the wall goes through the roof. It's only if it's flush. Then we can say good asik mechitza. Keshagag boilet lechutz. If the roof extends over the wall, then afilu legabi Shabbos lo yamrinu good asik. Then we don't even say good asik mechitza in the context of Hilchos Shabbos. Kidel el b'simin shin mem hey, like we learned together earlier in Siman shin mem hey and chelik daled sif tes zayin. Aizkat lamed aleph asik mechitza. We want to be able to say good asik mechitza. V'davka kishehu al sfas hagag mamish. But the Mishnah Berurah reminds us that even according to this day shniya that we do say good asik mechitza, this only works if you erect the sukkah at the edge of the building, so that the schach meets the edge of the building. If you distance the schach from the edge of the roof, even 3 tvachim, lo yamrinon lavud v'gud l'kulei alma. Then we're not going to say good asik mechitza, because what do you want to do? You want to use lavud together with good asik? We don't merge the two kuleis. V'halacha kidei rishayna the b'chal gavdi lo yamrinon legabi sukkah good asik. The halacha, however, says the Chavetz Chaim, follows the day rishayna that we do not say good asik mechitza to make such a sukkah kosher. Now, the lashon of the Mishnah Berurah is the b'chol gavni lo yamrinon legabi sukkah good asik mechitza, that we don't say good asik mechitza in any case in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. That is not really true. There are cases that we're going to see where we do use good asik mechitza to make certain scenarios kosher, but not to create the wall from scratch. If we have no wall at all, we don't say good asik mechitza to create a wall. We might say good asik mechitza to extend an already present wall. That we may do. But to create a wall from scratch, we do not say good asik mechitza in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. Now let's go to Siv Zayin. Okay, again, let's hearken back to the days of Eruvin. So if you remember when we were learning Hilchos Eruvin, one of the constructs that we spoke about at great length is the construct of a mavui, which would loosely translate in English as an alleyway. If we remember, back in Mishnaic times, the way the streets were laid out, or I don't know if you even want to call it the streets, the way the dwellings were laid out, it was common to have a number of houses in a chutzner. So a bunch of houses surrounded a courtyard, and they shared that courtyard. That's the chutzner. Then the chutzner opened up into a mavui. A mavui was an alleyway, and you can have several chatzerim all opening up onto one common alleyway, and that alleyway would lead to the Rishus HaRabim. Now, we learned about 2 different types of mavuis. We had a mavui that's mefulash, a mavui that's open, so that it doesn't have a closed end. It's basically 2 parallel walls form the walls of the mavui, but this mavui continues. You could walk straight through the mavui. Then we have a mavui she'ena mefulash. We have a closed mavui so that it has 3 walls. It's a dead end. You walk into this mavui, and through this mavui you can access chatzerim, but the mavui only has an opening on one end. Now, if you remember when we learned Hilchos Eruvin, you're not allowed to carry inside a mavui. We treat a mavui as a Rishus HaRabim. You're not allowed to carry inside the mavui unless you're misaked the mavui. The mavui needs a tikkun. It needs a heker. Now, let's remember some basic rules when it comes to hitzah. Midaraisa, in order to be able to carry in an enclosed area, it's enough for that area to be enclosed on 3 sides, to have 3 mechitzas. Midarabanan, we need 4 sides. When we talk about a mavui and we want to be misaked a mavui, let's say we have a mavui mefulish. We have a mavui mefulish, an open mavui. All it is 2 parallel walls. It's only surrounded on 2 sides. It's mefulish. You could walk right through. Midaraisa, you're not allowed to carry in the mavui mefulish. It's not considered a rishus hayachid. It's not walled in on 3 sides. If you are misaked the mavui by either putting up a lechi, right? Here my pen will be the lechi. So if you put up a lechi on one corner of one of the 2 sides, that lechi can act as somewhat of a mechitza. By putting up a lechi, and of course we get into all the requirements of what a lechi is, how big it has to be, etc., etc. But if you put up a proper lechi, now technically you have 3 mechitzas. And now midaraisa, you would be allowed to carry in there because you have 3 mechitzas. Midrabanan you can't, midrabanan you need 4. If you have a mavli she'ena mafulish, if you have a closed mavli, a mavli that's closed on 3 sides, now if you're misak in the 4th side, if on the 4th side you put up either a side post, a lechi, or you put up a kaira, or you put up an overhead beam on the on top of the open side of the mavli, now you have 4 mechitzas. That side post, that lechi, or that overhead kaira makes a 4th mechitza. Now you're allowed to carry inside that mavli both midaraisa and midrabana. Now we're going to discuss how do we deal with these scenarios in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. So says the Mechaber, Sikech al gabe mavli sheyesh loy lechi. If you put schach on top of a mavli, going from wall to wall on the mavli, you covered the mavli with schach. And it's a mavli that has a lechi. Says the Ramah in the parentheses here, Pirish, what's a lechi? Eitz kimin amud. A pole. You put up a wooden pole, a side post, by the mavli. So now, the Mechaber is discussing a mavli that is mesukan with a lechi. It has a lechi on one of the sides, and you put schach on top of it. But what the Mechaber does not address over here is which type of mavli is he referring to. Is he referring to a mavli mefulash? So it's a mavli that has 2 solid walls, and now you put up a lechi, and the lechi is making a 3rd wall? Or is he talking about a mavli she'enoi mefulash? Is he talking about a closed mavli, so that this mavli actually has 3 solid walls, and a lechi making a 4th wall? Which type of mavli is he talking about? He doesn't say. So we'll address this in the Mishnah Berurah. But let's read further. Sikech agabe mavli sheish lechi pirish eitz kimin amud. Or another scenario. Agabe be'er sheyesh loy pasin. Or you put up schach over a structure surrounding a well. There's a halacha of pasei birois. What's pasei birois? Back in the day when we was zocheh to have a Beis Hamikdash and Klal Yisrael was oile regel by the Sholosh Regalim, the oile regalim would come up with a problem. They were traveling, and certainly they were traveling through Rishus Harabim, and they had animals that they had to give water to, and they themselves needed water. Where did you get water from? You got water from a well. Now, usually the interior of a well would be a Rishus HaYachid. The interior of a well would be at least 10 tefachim deep. It would be at least 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim wide. So the interior of the well is the Rishus HaYachid. But the well is situated in Rishus Harabim. How do you draw water from the well? If you draw water from the well, you're taking the water out of a Rishus HaYachid and you're transferring it to a Rishus Harabim. How do you do that on Shabbos? So, in order to make life easier for the early regalim, the Chazal made a certain kula. They said that this is okay midaraisa, midrabanan, they wouldn't have liked it, but they made the following kula. They made the tikkun called pasei birois. The way pasei birois works is, the Chazal said, take 4 L-shaped posts. Okay? So here you have a post that's shaped like an L. You take 4 L-shaped posts, and you put one at each corner of the area surrounding the well. So now, around the well, you've enclosed an area using 4 L-shaped posts, one in each corner. And those L-shaped posts have to be 1 amma by 1 amma. By putting one of these posts at each corner, you now have running, let's say, east to west. You have an amma at each corner. And in all 4 directions, you have an amma pointing in each corner. The Chazal said that that is sufficient to enclose the area around the well and make the area around the well into a Rishus HaYachid. Now you could draw water from inside the well, bring it up onto the banks of the well, because the area surrounding the well has been turned into a Rishus HaYachid. Now the Mechaber wants to know, how do we deal with this in the context of Hilchas Sukkah? In the context of Hilchas Shabbos, in both of these cases, in the case of somebody who puts chach on top of the mavui that has a lechi, and in the case of somebody who erected these pasei birois, he made these L-shaped posts around a well, now he wants to put chach on top of this. In both of these cases, this area is considered surrounded by halachic mechitzos. Are those halachic mechitzos also usable in the context of Hilchas Sukkah? So again, I'm going to read from the beginning of Siv Zayin. If somebody puts chach on top of a mavui where one side of the mavui is mesukan with a lechi, what's a lechi? Pirish eitz kimin amud, a wooden post. Or he put up schach on top of the 4 poles, the 4 L-shaped posts, the pasei birois. Pirish, what's pasei birois? Karshe eitz, wooden beams, svivos habe'er, that are being used to surround a well, lasos rishus hayachid, to make the interior of that closure a rishus hayachid. Harezu sukkah kshera la'osei Shabbos, says the Mechaber, that is a kosher sukkah for that Shabbos shebesoicha chag bilvad. You have this area that's surrounded by pasei birois. If you ask me, in the context of Hilchas Sukkah, does this sukkah have walls? No, this sukkah doesn't have walls. We know that in the context of Hilchas Sukkah, you need at least 2 walls that are 7 by 7 tvachim. And then we spoke about what you could do to make a 3rd wall. But you need at least 2 solid perpendicular walls, and then a halachic wall. Over here by pasei birois, do we have that? We don't have that by pasei birois. So how is this a kosher sukkah? Says the Mechaber, for Shabbos of Sukkos, it's a kosher sukkah. So if Sukkot falls out on Monday and Tuesday, so for the first 2 days of Sukkot, you can't use this sukkah. But on Shabbos Chalamoyed, you'll be able to use this sukkah. Because now on Shabbos of Sukkot, this sukkah will become a kosher sukkah just for Shabbos. And the Mechaber continues, Mitoich, the reason this is going to be okay is, Mitoich shalechi zeh upasin elu mechitzos le'inyan Shabbos. The reason this sukkah is going to be kosher for Shabbos is, since these halachic mechitzos are effective in the context of Hilchas Shabbos, and today is Shabbos and Sukkot, so could we look at these mechitzos and say that they're not effective? No, because they are effective in the context of Hilchas Shabbos. If they're effective in the context of Hilchas Shabbos, then we see them as being effective in the context of Hilchas Sukkah too, but only on Shabbos. Since the bottom line is that this lechi, or these pasin, are effective in the context of Hilchas Shabbos, we have to consider them effective in the context of Hilchas Sukkah as well. Okay, let's stop here for a moment, and let's go to the Mishnah Berurah. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah's cut in limud beis. The first case of the Mechaber here in Siv Zayin was, you put schach on top of a mavui that was mesukan with a lechi. Says the Chofetz Chaim, midasasam ha-mechaber, like I pointed out to you when we read the Mechaber. The Mechaber does not tell you which kind of mavui he's talking about. Is he talking about a mavui mafulish, or is he talking about a mavui she'eina mafulish? So the Mechaber says, midasasam ha-mechaber, since the Mechaber wrote this stam, and he did not specify what kind of mavui he's speaking about, mashma, the direct implication is, this svirle that the Mechaber holds, ka-poiskim, like those poiskim who hold, da'afilu b'mavui ha-mafulish, that even by a mavui mafulish, again, what's the mavui mafulish? Mavui mafulish is only 2 parallel walls. You could walk straight through. So all you have is 2 parallel walls. V'yesh le'lechi mitzad echad, and now it has a lechi, a side post, on one of the open sides. So let's realize what we have here. We have 2 parallel walls, and we have a side post at one of the open corners. Now let's stop this discussion for a minute, and let's remember what we learned in previous shiurim. If you have a sukkah that's made out of 2 parallel walls, and now you need a 3rd wall, what did we learn you need? Back, I believe it was in Siv Gimel, we learned that in order to make that sukkah kosher, you need on one of the open ends, you need a pas arba, you need a board that's at least 4 tvachim wide, that has to be placed within 3 tvachim of the end of one of the walls. So between the 3 tvachim of lavud and the 4 tvachim of the wall, you have a wall of 7 tvachim. And then we had a machlokes, do you need a tzuras HaPesach continuing the rest of the wall or not? But certainly, you need a pas arba within the shear of lavud of one of the corners. Do we have that here in the scenario that we're discussing now? No. All we have is 2 parallel walls and a side post, a lechi. That's all we have. So how is that sukkah kosher? So let's go back into the Mishnah Berurah here. Continues the Mishnah Berurah. So again, since the Mechaber writes this stam, and he doesn't say if he's talking about a mavi mafulish or a mavi sheina mafulish, mashma, the implication is the sphere like our poiskim, that the Mechaber holds like the poiskim who hold the afilu b'mavi amafulish. Even if we're dealing with a mavi amafulish, so you only have 2 parallel walls, v'yesh lo lechi mitzad echad, and all you have on the third side is a side post, a lechi, v'sikech kishir hechsher sukkah l'tzad lechi, and you made enough schach, so you went from parallel wall to parallel wall, you covered an area of zayin al zayin, you covered an area that's at least 7 by 7 tvachim, so you have an area of 7 by 7 that's covered with kosher schach, and it's surrounded by 2 parallel walls of the mavli and the lechi. That's what the Mishnah Berurah means when he says that you did this litzad halechi. You did it at the end of the mavli where the lechi is. Here, I'll just draw just a quick picture so you understand. You all know that my artistic abilities are non-existent. Okay, so here you have your mavli mafulish. All you have is 2. You have 1 parallel wall here and 1 parallel wall here. Then at this corner, you have a lechi, right? You put up schach on this area here, going towards the lechi. Forget this area here. But you made an area of at least 7 by 7 towards this side where the lechi is. So what do you have? You have 2 parallel walls and a lechi. That's all you have. Gam came kosher. The Mechaber holds that this would be kosher on Shabbos of Sukkot. If it's not Shabbos, it won't be kosher. But on Shabbos of Sukkot, this will be kosher. Vatam, and the reason is, Dal Yedei Lechi, because by virtue of this side post, by virtue of this lechi, nechshav le'inyan Shabbos, that lechi is choshev enough in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, afilu rochav mashahu, even if it's a tiny little lechi, all it is a furring strip. Kilo haya mechitza loisay tzad. In the context of Hilchos Shabbos, that lechi makes a mechitza on that open side of the mavli. Vim kain, and if so, yesh loy shalosh mechitzas. So now you have 3 mechitzas. In the context of Hilchos Shabbos, you have 1 mechitza, 2 mechitzas, and that lechi is a 3rd mechitza over here. So in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, you have 3 mechitzas. V'hevim in HaTorah rishus hayachid, and midaraisa that mavli is now rishus hayachid. And therefore, v'amrinon we say, migu to have a mechitza le'inyan Shabbos, since it's a valid mechitza in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, havinami mechitza le'inyan Sukkah b'Shabbos she'iklu b'sachachag, it's also a valid mechitza in the context of Hilchos Sukkah for Shabbos of Sukkot. Now the pella over here is, midrabanan you're not allowed to carry in that mavli. Because midrabanan you need an enclosure on 4 sides. And all you have is 3, 2 parallel walls and 1 lechi. So midrabanan, this lechi is not really effective. It is effective, it makes 3 mechitzas, but it does not allow you to carry. Still in all, b'Shabbos de Sukkah, on Shabbos of Sukkot, mutter mishum mitzvah Sukkah. So you see what's going on here, Rabbi Isai? On a normal Shabbos in the middle of the summer, you have this mavli mufulish, you have 2 parallel walls, and you put up a lechi on one of the open sides. Are you allowed to carry in that mavli? No. Midrabanan, you're not allowed to carry because you only have 3 sides, 2 parallel walls and 1 lechi. If you have Sukkot, the first day of Sukkot, on a Monday, you put up 2 parallel walls and a lechi and you put schach on top. Is that a kosher sukkah? No. All you have is 2 parallel walls and a lechi. That's not a sukkah. On Shabbos of Sukkot, everything goes haywire. On Shabbos of Sukkot, suddenly it's going to be a kosher sukkah. Why? Because again, that lechi makes a mechitza in the context of Hilchos Shabbos. Since it makes a mechitza in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, it's a mechitza in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. Since it's a mechitza in the context of Hilchos Sukkah, the sukkah has 3 walls. Since the sukkah has 3 walls, it's a kosher sukkah. Oh, it's a kosher sukkah? Then mishum mitzvah of sukkah, now we want to make sure that you could use the sukkah. In order to use the sukkah, you have to be able to be metaltal in the sukkah. Now you're allowed to carry in the sukkah. So how interesting is this? If it was a normal Shabbos during the summer, you wouldn't be allowed to carry in that mavui. Now you're allowed to carry in the mavui. If it was a normal day of Sukkot that wasn't Shabbos, it wouldn't be a kosher sukkah. Now that it's Shabbos, it's a kosher sukkah, and you're allowed to carry in it. Now, this is the opinion of the Mechaber. We're going to see later on that the Ramah disagrees with this. Then we spoke about the case of Pasei Birois. Hainu, what are these Pasei Birois? Arba Kairois. These are 4 posts, ne'utzites, that are stuck into the ground, ba'arba aruchais, on the 4 directions, zu keneged zu, one opposite the other. In other words, 1 post at each corner. Shekol kairin noita amalakan va'amalakan. And each one of these are L-shaped, so that they extend 1 amma in each direction. V'hitirua, and the Chazal were matter this mishum oili regalim, because of the oili regalim sheyuchaylim lishoy mayim lebehemtan min abor, so that they should be able to draw water from the interior of a well, shehu rishos hayachid, which is typically a rishos hayachid, v'oimid b'rishos harabim, and the well is located in rishos harabim. So it was impossible for them to draw water from the well, which is a rishos hayachid, and bring it up to the area surrounding the well, which is a rishos harabim. So the Chazal came up with this kula of Pasei Birois. You put up these 4 L-shaped posts, 1 at each corner of the area surrounding the well, and the area surrounded by those Pasei Birois becomes the Rishos HaYochid. V'ayodeh pasin nasis vivis habe'er Rishos HaYochid. V'afagav d'lo yitiru ze elo l'oili regalim, even though this is only a kula that the Chazal made for the oili regalim. You couldn't do this stamazah in the middle of the year. This was specifically done for the oili regalim. Hacha mishum mitzvah sukkah, and when it comes out Shabbos on Sukkot, he turu gam kein davar b'Shabbos Shabbosei Chag. You could use the kula of Pasei Birois on Shabbos of Sukkot to make yourself a sukkah. Now says the Ramah, let's go to the words of the Ramah, 2 lines from the bottom. However, says the Ramah, ve'ein lahater ela b'makom shalechi upasin matirin le'inyan Shabbos. Where the Ramah takes issue with the Mechaber is he says, yes, it's true. When we have these types of halachic walls, halachic mechitzas, like the lechi by a mavui, or like the Pasei Birois, we could use those in the context of Hilchos Sukkah on Shabbos of Sukkot, but only when they are going to be efficacious lahalacha lamaisa for Shabbos. We could only use this trick if halacha lamaisa we are going to be able to carry by virtue of that mechitza in the context of Hilchos Shabbos. The or shaykh migui. Then you could use this migui, and you could say, since it works in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, it works in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. But if halacha lamaisa you cannot carry in that area on Shabbos, that it's not really working in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, then you can't use it in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. And one of the nafkaminas that the Ramah is making over here, one of the areas of dispute that he has with the Mechaber, is the case that we discussed in Mishnah Berurah Ois and Lamed Beis. The Mavli Mefulish. The Mavli Mefulish, you have 2 parallel walls, and then you have a lechi. Now, we said that lechi closes off a 3rd side. And midaraisa, when you have an area that's closed off on 3 sides, you're allowed to carry, because midaraisa that's a rishos hayachid. But midarabanan, you're not allowed to carry, because midarabanan you need 4 sides. So here we have a case where, in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, that lechi is effective midaraisa. It does make a 3rd wall, but are we allowed to carry? No, because midarabanan was still not allowed to carry. Therefore, says the Ramah, since halacha lamaisa, it's not matir tiltul because of the Yisod Rabbanan, we can't use that third mechitza in the context of Hilchos Sukkah either. Because Lamaisa, we're not using that mechitza to change the halacha. That mechitza is not allowing us to be metaltal. Then we can't use it for the Sukkah either. Says the Mishnah Berurah inside is Kat Lamed Aleph ve'en lahatir. Hainu, the reason the Ramah writes this is Mishum da HaMechaber Sasam. Since the Mechaber wrote this in a stam way, like we pointed out, and the implication of the Mechaber was that this trick works even by the Mavim of foolish. We were only going to have 2 walls and a lechi. Lachein, therefore, Balaimar, the Ramah comes to say, the Lamaisa yesh lahachmer kedasa poiskim, that we should be machmer like those poiskim who hold the ein lahater lebamakum shalechi mata le'inyan Shabbos, that we could only use this trick when the lechi is actually matter us to be metaltal in the context of Hilchos Shabbos. Dahainu b'makom sasa mishalosh ruchais, which is the case of the mavi she'einoy foolish, the mavi that's closed on 3 sides. Ubaruach revius yesh lechi, and there's a lechi on the 4th side. Disham mutter af midrabanan l'taltal b'Shabbos. In that case, the lechi, we're actually using the lechi halacha l'maisa, because like this, we only had an area that was closed on 3 sides. Midrabanan would not allowed to carry. Now that we have the lechi closes off the 4th side, and now we could carry even midrabanan. In that case, we could use the lechi in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. After Linyan Sukkah came shtei defanos. Now, you're going to ask me the following question. Some of you might be wondering about this. If we're talking about a movim of foolish, then in the context of Hilchos Sukkah, why do I need the lechi at all? I don't understand. I have 1, 2, 3 walls. That's all I need for a sukkah. So if the Ramah is coming and the Ramah is telling me I could only use this lechi, I could only use the migui, that since it works in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, it works in the context of Hilchos Sukkah, I could only use it if I have 3 walls. If I have 3 walls, I don't need it. The answer is you do need it. You know why? Because of this case. Where's the schach? The schach is only up here. The schach is distanced way away from this wall. In this case, this wall does nothing for me in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. All I have is 1 parallel wall here and another parallel wall here. I only have 2 walls in this case. I need the lechi to provide me for the 3rd wall. In this case, says the Ramah, since in the context of Hilchos Shabbos we have a movi she'eino mefulish, it's closed on 3 sides, and this lechi now closes off the 4th side and allows me to carry inside this mavui even midrabanan. Now I could use this lechi to create me a 3rd wall in the context of Hilchos Sukkah, and now I have 1, 2, 3 walls, and my sukkah is kosher. So let's just finish off the Chavetz Chaim here. After l'inyan sukkah lo'nuka lakshav. Whoops, my light just fell off. Okay. After l'inyan sukkah lo'nuka lakshav kim shtei defanos. Even though in this case, in the context of Hilchos Sukkah, like I just explained, all I have is 2 walls, 1 and 2. And why is that? Shaskachu rak l'tzad lechi levad, because the schach is only on the side of the mavui that has the lechi. So I can't use the back wall. Still in all, since this lechi is effective in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, it's also effective in closing off this side in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. Oiskan lamed hey, upasin matirin. The Ramah said I can only use this migui if the lechi or the pasin are going to be effective in the context of Hilchos Shabbos. So the case of the lechi we just described. Where is the Ramah matir? The Ramah is matir where the lechi is going to allow us to carry even midrabanan. It's a mavi sasam, a mavi that's closed off on 3 sides. How about the pasin? When, according to the Ramah, can we rely on the pasin? Says the Chavetz Chaim, bisman sheyesh oile regalim. You know when you would be able to use pasei birois? When you have oile regalim. If we have a Beis Hamikdash and we have oile regalim, then we could use pasei birois on Shabbos of Sukkot. For ha'idna deleka oile regalim, nowadays, and unfortunately, we don't have oile regel. So first of all, we don't have oile regalim. So then pasei birois don't work for us. We never have a scenario where we can use the kula of pasei birois, so that we can't use pasei birois in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. However, the Chafetz Chaim points out there is one case where even nowadays we could rely on the kula of pasei birois in the context of Hilchos Shabbos, and therefore we would be able to rely on it also in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. What's that case? If you live in a locale where there's problems where they don't have water, the mutter l'dvar mitzvah, in that case we're allowed to use pasei birois when we need water for a mitzvah. V'gam dafka b'rishus harabim v'lo b'chotzer, and you would only be able to use it in a rishus harabim and not in a chotzer, because in a chotzer the pasei birois don't do anything for us; they're not being matir or anything. Because then it's logical to use, in these cases it's logical to say the migui. That migui, that it's effective for Hilchos Shabbos, is effective for Hilchos Sukkah. The Chafetz Chaim says we should certainly be machmer like the opinion of the Ramah. But if you mamish have a pressing circumstance where you have no other sukkah, in a pressing circumstance, you could rely on the opinion of the mechaber, and you could say that we could use the pasei birois and we could use the lechi, even if halacha l'maisa we're not going to be able to carry because of an issa d'Rabbanan, it's still a valid mechitza, and we could use it in the context of Hilchos Sukkah. Okay? A little bit of a complex share. I thought we might get started with Sivches, but I see not. So Mir Hashem will continue tomorrow with Sivches. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. Discuss of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Baruch Hashem should send Yeshua's refuahs and parnasim to all those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the Biyas called Tzedek b'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.